raid buffs and were auto-attacking you for... It wasn't a fixed amount of damage, but the crits were always exactly the same, so you could get an accurate comparison of mitigation. And when I was doing my testing, for instance, 54 Paladin with 54 Paladin, 18 Reaver, 4 VK with all buffs up, and comparing that with at the time I think I was comparing 61 Rift Stalker, 8 Tactician, 7 Ranger, and I'd mathematically worked out what the difference in damage taken should be, and it was within 0.01% of what I was seeing in the combat log. So for physical damage, that definitely was working that way then. But those mobs could have been using, if there was a hidden category of spells, those mobs might not have been using them, or, I don't know all the factors.
It just seems to be a very delicate situation at the moment. No one really quite knows what's causing it. No one really knows quite, how to fix it. It's just kind of a lot of it's speculation. Tryon knows the majority of what's happening, and I guess we're trying to figure it out.
They're gonna know how their mechanics work better than any of us is ever going to know.
Yeah.
I thought I was getting to the point where I knew everything, but this is showing that I don't.
Well, what Atris needs to stop doing is stop testing shit in IAs,
Ooh, baiting there.
No, it's definitely a problem, because I remember this is the last time I really did anything in tanking wise. I went into a dungeon. It was what was the fucking dungeon's name? It was this dungeon where the first trash pulls is like this cylindrical room, and these guys come out of these cylinders, right? And I'm tanking equal gear as our rogue tank, and I'm getting destroyed. He goes in there and he's like, da 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 da, super easy to heal. Everyone loves him, which is fine. We have tanks that can do that kind of stuff. But I wanna be able to go into a dungeon or a raid and not get absolutely murdered. I wanna be able to not be a detriment to my guild or my group. And that's the problem I'm having right now. Whatever they do, I'm trying to provide, combat logs to you guys so you can track something down. But it's an issue that I don't think we should be working so hard at it. Like, you're not a dev, are you? Are you getting paid by Tryon Primal? No, you're not. So
I can't answer that question.
Why should you be doing all this work?
Because I enjoy it.
Yeah, but that shouldn't be your job. That should be their job. And we provide feedback, but it's getting to the point where it feels like we're doing their job. We're getting all the data and theory crafting for them, and it's still getting ignored on some level.
It's not necessarily getting ignored. It's just tuning and balancing and finding out what's actually wrong. This deep in the code can be very difficult. As he said, it's not something that's wrong with warriors per se. Maybe we're still not sure. Finding where that is, that could be really, really difficult in their defense.
Yeah, and it's the issue is compounded by the fact that mitigation's roughly equal, but the additional healing taken by Justicars, VKs, and Rift Stalkers just means that even if you're taking the same amount of damage, they're easier to heal. So really, when you're comparing tank specs, looking at the actual mitigation is not the best idea. What you actually want to look at is you actually want to look at the effective health, which is the amount of damage you can take amount of boss outgoing damage you can take before the player dies. So that's your ability to survive burst attacks, and the amount of outgoing healing from your healers that's required to keep you up. So if you're flat mitigation and your effective health is flat, but rogues require 10% less healing, they look like they're 10% easier to heal. So even if they're taking the same amount of damage, in reality, what should be happening is to actually reach parity on both fronts, warriors should be taking, whatever the healing buff is. So at the moment, they're about 10%. So really, warriors should be taking close to 10% less damage, and then have similar amounts. Then have less health, so they've got the same effective health. But then, because rogues and clerics take more healing, it takes the same amount of outgoing healing from the healers to keep them topped off. So then if you do that, then you line them up on a spreadsheet. It'll look like warriors take 10% less damage, and everyone go, "What? This is bullshit." Or they'll say, "I was doing this fight, and Crucia's breath hit me for 1 million damage, but rogues got hit for 1.2 million. This is bullshit." But that's really not the best method of judging the survivability.
One other good thing to mention about tanking that we actually haven't covered is not necessarily the mitigation in general, but in terms of effective abilities and cooldowns. I think you would be more knowledgeable in that, since I only know about warriors. I mean, how do the warrior, cooldowns compare to the others? Because from my understanding, they're not, even comparable. Could you possibly go into that a little bit?
A lot of people say that, but it's really not that far off kilter. If you actually, in reality, the people that get shafted by cooldowns are clerics, because clerics basically didn't get any new cooldowns with the expansion, and everybody else did. So I mean, clerics are still stuck with Resplendent Embrace and Just Defense. And technically, they have Revive, but that scales like nothing. Heals for about 3k, so that's useless. But the main issue is people say, okay, yes, rogues have a lot more cooldowns, and yes, they do. The thing is, most of theirs are on 2-minute cooldowns. So if you look at it, you say they have Planar Refuge, which is basically the same as Crest of Entropy or Shield Defense, and so 35% damage reduction for 6 or 10 seconds or something like that. So theirs is on a 2-minute cooldown, and then the warrior ones are on a 1-minute cooldown, so you got it twice as often. So that evens out part of it. And then basically your standard Riftstalker will have Planar Refuge, Defer Death, which is the shield proc when you're about to die, Scatter the Shadows, which is 90% damage reduction for 3 seconds. So that nobody else has anything like that. That's really good for surviving one-shot mechanics. Then they've got Planebound Aegis, which is the same as Just Defense, which is a 50% HP shield that you can use whenever you want, and Physical Wellness, but it's only 1500 health for the raid, which is not much. Whereas you look and you say, okay, so most warrior specs either have Shield Defense on a 1-minute cooldown, or Crest of Entropy on a 1-minute cooldown, so that's the equivalent of having 2 of the rogues cooldowns right there, because they're all on 2 minutes. And then or Fusion of Flesh if it worked. We won't get near that again. And then a lot of them, most specs have got Touch of Life for the full heal. So really that's twice as good as a half heal. Not quite twice as good, but roughly twice as good on the same cooldown. So if you add it up like that, you've got 4 cooldowns every 4 minutes, and rogues have got 4 cooldowns every 4 minutes. It's really not that different. But because they actually have a larger number, they can chain them over a longer period of time. So they can chain cooldowns back to back for 30 seconds or something like that, whereas a warrior can't do that. And they also have Soul Coalescence. Sorry, I forgot about that, which is the stacking damage reduction, which ends up being up to 20% every 30 seconds for 4 seconds, which is actually quite a big difference. And that, in a raid point of view, and I suppose in a group point of view, that is a really big deal, because they can use that for pretty much every single boss mechanic. And that just, if you've got a breath that goes for 4 or 5 seconds every 30 seconds, they can basically cool down every single one of those with almost 2 cooldowns without healers. And that's where it becomes a big issue, I think, that particular ability.
Yeah, see, and I wasn't really aware of that, so thank you. As I said, I really do not know much about other classes.
Yeah. I mean, theoretically, if VK shields were decent, if Devouring Shield was something like 10% of your max health with 3 combo points when you were like 61 VK or something, then you could be using that very frequently, and that combined with Rift Shield, if it was decent on a 50-second cooldown, VKs could be doing the exact same thing. But at the moment, their shields are basically a waste of a GCD. They're pretty useless in most situations.
Yeah, I mean, who cares about a 2k absorb every, 4 GCDs?
Yeah, it's only useful if you're going to be one-shot and you need an extra 2k health. Other than that,
the problem is, though, I mean,
the threat loss isn't worth it.
You've seen this from the logs, that I posted, is a one-shot is a lot more than a one-shot. I mean, you've seen some, like, 60k hits.
Oh, we had a few concerns about what might have been causing that, though. It wasn't necessarily because the guy was a warrior.
I know, I'm just saying, in general, though, stuff does hit very hard.
Oh, yeah. If you don't know stuff hits hard in Storm Legion, you haven't been playing Storm Legion. Yeah, that shit hits like a truck everywhere, on everyone. But basically, if you're a warrior wanting to tank content right now, any sort of content, and you are running something that isn't 54 Paladin, 51 Reaver, or 61 VK, you should be, because you might be slightly behind with those specs. Without those specs, you're absolutely and undeniably screwed. You'll just be infinitely more difficult to heal.
Yeah, I mean, I was more geared than a lot of the players first, and then, I went into experts, and I was, healed through it, and then, a day or so later, a cleric would hit 60, a rogue would hit 60, and, really wouldn't have any gear. And, people were saying they're being healed easier than me. So, I mean, as he said, you really need to be one of those 3 specs. It's completely doable. It's just a matter of why do it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. On paper things should be relatively even, but as we're seeing in practice and is becoming more evident as more people are hitting max level and hitting harder content, there's issues there.
All right, I mean, it seems we've covered everything pretty well. Did you really anything else come to mind? Intrinsic, Primal?
No, I've heard it's been pretty detailed.
Sorry, anybody who happens to be in chat, I know we don't have too many right now. Could possibly do some quick questions. Just kind of a bit hard because we are raiding at the moment.
I didn't realize you guys are actually in raid at the moment.
Yeah, we're raiding right now. That's why we've been a bit on and off. So I apologize for that.
No, I thought I was just hogging all the airtime.
No, I've been trying to talk. I'm in the middle of a raid, so it's making it a little bit difficult.
Let me. If that's all we got to say about tanking, then I'll say something about the warrior DPS.
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered it. I mean, for the people who might just now be here, we have a channel where we're trying to find the problem. We're working with them to find the problem, and they're aware of it, and that's what matters. They're working on it, and they're aware that there are tank issues, and they're aware that there are DPS issues. And I think that is what really counts, is that they are putting the effort into it to fix it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure that Atreus is gonna get bombarded with combat logs and stuff. I know I'm trying to do my part, even though I don't tank, but I mean, it's affecting our guild.
It is. I mean, personally, I've been raiding since this game came out, and having my guild tell me that I can't raid, I mean, it's really shitty.
Yeah, that feels super shitty. Like yesterday, I was talking. We were talking after raid about the different stuff we could do for Crucia, and I'm being told that unless, like, just because of a rogue can bring better DPS, because just the class is that much better right now, I'm gonna be sad. I haven't missed a raid since I got here. I haven't missed a raid since I started playing Rift. anything out of my control. Like I pride myself